Does Funko actually hate Star Wars collectors? Today, I'm going to give you my breakdown of everything that happened with Funko and Star Wars in 2024. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to be giving you my thoughts on how Funko did in terms of their Star Wars releases here in 2024. Now, it was a really interesting year. We saw our first wave of Star Wars NFTs, and we also got several animated and live action shows. Now, obviously, Funko cannot just go out and make anything that they want to make in terms of Star Wars. They have to get it approved by their IP partner, which is, of course, Disney. And in terms of source material from characters that they were likely going to make here in 2024, they could have based them off of a few shows. We saw the epic conclusion and season 3 of The Bad Batch. We also got the animated Tales of the Empire show, not to mention that horribly received Acolyte show, which I'll admit I didn't even watch because the reviews were so bad, and a season 2 was actually canceled before season 1 was all the way through on Disney+. And now we are in the midst of Skeleton Crew, which had a decent premise, I'll admit, when I first went into the show, but now we're 4 episodes in and I have no idea what's going on and if this is even Star Wars. Not to mention, in terms of Funko releases this year, our first NFT drop was subpar, in my opinion, considering all the pops were original trilogy based and characters that we have gotten multiple times before, especially that C-3PO, man. What was going on with that figure? But that drop did sell out, so I'm sure Funko and Drop consider that a huge success. And to top it all off, in terms of the con releases this year, they were very lackluster. For San Diego Comic-Con, we got not one, but 2 Thrawns, one of which being Diamond. I'm not sure who made that decision over at Funko, but nonetheless, it was a limited piece, so it, of course, got some hype. And then with New York Comic-Con, it actually got worse, where we got a Kylo Ren, which wasn't a bad-looking Kylo Ren, but for the only release for New York Comic-Con in terms of Star Wars, it was just a character that I felt like had been very overdone. The last thing that I have to mention here is the fact that we got no Freddy Funko Star Wars characters, and not to mention this year could have been a killer one considering Funko introduced Franny, and I would have loved to see a Franny as Ahsoka. I mean, how cool would that have been? To make things even worse for us Star Wars collectors, to get our hopes up, there was actually a leak of a Ventress prototype that went around for a few weeks that got myself included, us very excited as fans, thinking that there was an Asajj Ventress pop finally in the works. It's been teased for how many years now, yet there's been no official release or nothing confirmed by Funko. And then on top of that, there was also a leak going around that there was a Starkiller release on the way. Yet another character that hasn't had a Funko Pop yet, and another rumor that turned out to be just in fact that, a rumor unfulfilled by Funko. So where are we? How do we stand here in terms of what happened in 2024, taking everything that I just gave you into consideration? Well, I went through every single Star Wars pop that was released from January 2024 up until now, and I put together my top 10 list here, and I gotta say that I'm actually not overall that upset. We did get some decent releases. I just have a couple quick suggestions and overall opinions that I think Funko needs to desperately take into consideration moving forward in the years to come in regards to Star Wars. So let's jump into my top 10. Coming in at number 10, we've got the Battle Droid from Episode 1. Finally, we did get a Battle Droid in Funko Pop form this year. Now, ultimately, when I first saw this pop, I was hoping that maybe as a con release we would get a Super Battle Droid, but that didn't end up happening, and it's still, the door is open for Funko to take that opportunity in the future. But this was a huge success and something that I know a lot of Funko fans have been dreaming of for a long time. So to finally see this iconic droid in Funko Pop form was definitely a win, and that's why it had to make my top 10 list.
Roger, roger.
Coming in at number 9, we actually got word that we were getting an extension yet again on the very popular and arguably one of the best Star Wars lines out there, the Rebels line. Toy Temple actually released a Season 4 version of Ezra Bridger using the Force, and this pop got me particularly excited, not only because they were extending the Rebels line once again, but because they were giving us a different version of Ezra compared to his Season 1 figure that was released all those years years back. Not to mention that this was such a critical moment in the Rebels TV series, as this was coming from the finale where Ezra actually took Thrawn and his entire fleet into the unknown universe, and then that story of course was expanded upon in Ahsoka Season 1. So I thought this was a fantastic figure. Putting aside the drama with the 5,000 piece count limited pre-release sticker and all that jazz, that really was unnecessary, but nonetheless this was an excellent figure, a great representation of Ezra, and I'm really happy that it was released here in 2024. Moving on to number 8, something that I have been asking for, as well as a lot of other Star Wars fans here in the Funko community, is for more clone troopers. And that's why coming in at number 8, I've got the Phase 2 GameStop exclusive 501st Clone Trooper. Now, there are two things that really screams out to me in regards to this figure. I think it looks fantastic. Standard clone mold. You got the blue stripe down the middle of the helmet. Looks amazing. However, I can't not help but think that Funko is now subtly paying attention to the aftermarket. For those of you guys who've been in the collecting community here for a couple years, you may know that there's actually an original 501st Trooper that was limited to only 480 pieces from San Diego Comic-Con 2012. This pop is very expensive. It's often not, you don't see it very often, and that's because it goes for over $2,000. So Funko seeing that and realizing that, wow, there's Star Wars collectors out there who are willing to shell out over $2,000 for this one particular pop. Let's go ahead and release a different version that's similar to that one, and that will of course drive down the value of that one a little bit, but will also encourage collectors to go out and grab this version and will make us very easy money. It is a smart move by Funko, but it is another piece of evidence to where I think they are paying attention to the aftermarket, whereas if they were just to release other clone troopers, it wouldn't matter. But nonetheless, I am happy that we got a Phase 2 501st here in 2024. Moving on to a very recent release here. Coming in at my number 7 spot, I have yet again another Ezra Bridger and another extension onto the Rebels line. We have Ezra Bridger with our first ever Loathe Cat. This is an Amazon exclusive. I believe it's up for pre-order right now. I've got mine hopefully on the way at some point very soon, because I am very excited to be adding this one to my collection for pretty much one reason, and that is the Loathe Cat standing next to Ezra Bridger from his home planet of Lothal. The Ezra is a little boring, to be honest. I would have preferred maybe Sabine with this pop, or I don't know, maybe the Loathe Cat by itself. I also am a little upset in the order of how they did the figure, because of how pop boxes are structured, with the face on the left side of the pop and the figure on the right, depending on which way you're looking at it. I would have preferred the Loathe Cat standing on the other side of Ezra, so you would have had more window space to see him, and then maybe if they would have raised that Amazon exclusive sticker, but maybe they did it this way so the Amazon exclusive sticker didn't block the Loathe Cat at all. Either way, I'm very excited for this pop because we are getting our first ever Loathe Cat, and once again, I am not upset to get yet another extension onto the Rebels line. There was also another Ezra Bridger that released this year. That was the Ezra in the Night Trooper armor from the end of Ahsoka Season 1. The only reason that this one made the cut and not the Ezra in the Night Trooper armor is simply because of the Loathe Cat. If this was just a standard Ezra with no Loathe Cat, this one would not have even made the list. So this is 100% all about the Loathe Cat. Coming in at number 6, I am happy to report that here in 2024, we actually got some Star Wars characters made into Funko Pops for the very first time. And that is something that I'm always pushing and hoping that Funko does year in and year out, because I think it just breathes fresh life into any IP here in the hobby, and it just keeps collectors engaged, because how many variants of the same character can you collect over and over and over? Eventually, you're going to run out of variants, you're going to run out of ideas, and they're just not going to be different enough to encourage collectors to buy them and put them on their shelves. And that's why coming in at number 6, I have the Knights of the Old Republic GameStop exclusive Darth Nihilus. And this pop just looks so good. And I'll admit, I do not have a extensive knowledge of the Old Republic. I'm still going back and trying to learn about some of these other characters that I'm unfamiliar with, and seeing a pop like this just gets me very excited because it encourages me as a Star Wars collector to learn more and seek out more information about these characters as I grab them for my collection. Now, this one in particular, I love the way the face is designed. Overall, I just think that as a Sith Lord, this one stands out on my shelf, and I do not want to get another Darth Vader. I don't need another Darth Maul, with the exception of one that we're going to be talking about later in the list. This is something that I want to see more of, and I understand why Funko is going to make this a GameStop exclusive as compared to a con exclusive, because I know that I'm a diehard Star Wars fan, but most people out there are not diehard Star Wars fans. So if they see this on a con catalog, for example, at San Diego Comic-Con, they're probably not going to buy it. Moving into the number 5 spot, as we are now halfway through the list, this is a pop that I was so excited to see and is once again very long overdue. We have the young Boba Fett, aka Daniel Logan's character from the prequel trilogy, specifically based on his appearance in Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Now, this overall is a little bit of a boring pop, and I understand why a lot of people are going to pass on it, but for me, young Boba Fett was a pretty critical part of my childhood. I remember seeing Episode 2 over and over and over. I remember that critical scene where he's actually holding, young Boba Fett here is holding Jango Fett's helmet right after he was decapitated by Mace Windu, and man, wouldn't that have been a crazy pop if they somehow managed to figure out how to, conform young Boba Fett in a way that he was kneeling down with Jango's helmet in his hands. Like, that would have been crazy, and that would have gone really hard. But I don't know at what point does, Funko encourage, decapitation or, body parts being missing and stuff like that. I think they do it for some other horror characters, but I could understand why that might have been just a little bit too dark of a pop. But nonetheless, it was a very big moment from the prequel trilogy, and one that a lot of people remember, specifically Daniel Logan's character in. Now, the other part of this pop, it is from the Legacy, the Boba Fett Legacy line, where we saw a couple other versions of Boba Fett and Jango Fett. I thought they were kind of boring, but overall, I was really happy to get young Boba Fett here in Funko Pop form, because he was also a pretty big character in the Clone Wars. If you guys remember him coming up as a bounty hunter, causing havoc, running around with Cad Bane and such. So that was another reason why I was super excited to finally get this pop. Moving on to number 4, we have yet again another Amazon exclusive, and this is a character, technically, that we have never gotten before, because their appearance came for the first time in Mandalorian Season 3. Now, some of you guys are going to say, as I show this pop here on the screen, yes, we've gotten Praetorian Guards before. However, this is technically a different version of the Praetorian Guards, as they have the Mandalorian-style helmet, and they fought alongside Moff Gideon. And this pop overall just looks so clean. I love the way they designed him. The helmet is spot on. The coloring is great. You have the cape kind of flowing slightly in the wind, and even though Mandalorian Season 3 wasn't the best, it definitely wasn't the best Mandalorian season out of the 3, the Praetorian Guards were definitely a highlight for me, especially when they faced off against Paz Vizsla. So I was very excited to get this one for my collection, and I will give Funko credit where credit was due. Even though this probably should have came out last year when the show debuted, I'm fine if they take their time, if it's something that's worthy of, taking a few extra months to get out. Also, they probably didn't know that these characters were going to be in the show until the show was released, because Disney does keep a very tight lid on what happens with these big, pop culture shows nowadays. Moving into number 3, we have another GameStop exclusive, once again of a character that we have never gotten before, and this one had to make the list for me. This is Darth Malgus, probably another Sith Lord that some of you have never heard of and don't know anything about. For me, ultimately, when I saw this one, I just thought it was so cool because they nailed the breathing apparatus that is pretty significant to this character's backstory. Darth Malgus was wounded, and he needs this breathing apparatus to survive for the rest of his life. And overall, Funko just did a great job capturing these details with this figure. And even though he's one that is probably not going to be in most people's collections, I think it's really cool, and I'm happy to have it in mine. Moving on to number 2. Now, these top two picks. They might be a little bit controversial, but that's okay. This is my list, and if you guys have a different list, or if you have pops in different orders on your top 10 list, definitely let me know down in the comments section below. But coming in at number 2 is a big one, and this is just all the evidence in the world that Funko is definitely paying attention to pricing on the aftermarket. However, in this case, I think it's actually okay. We have the glow-in-the-dark hologram hooded Darth Maul. This was actually a specialty series exclusive, and this was a big deal for a lot of people, and I don't understand why this was a con exclusive, unless Funko is just simply being greedy and they want to make as many figures of this particular character as possible to make as much money as possible, because this is one that if you want to go back and try to get the original holographic Darth Maul that was limited to 480 pieces, you're gonna have to shell out over $6,000, which I would imagine is not in most people's budgets. Only a few people in this space are going to be able to go out and spend that much money on that figure, and that is one that I don't even have. I would love to have it, but it just skyrocketed in price over the years, and it's now way out of my budget and my means, and that's okay, because now I have this one in my collection. It costs me significantly less, and I think that's why in this stance it's actually okay, because Funko released this in a way that it's still different from the original, and that's why we haven't seen the original one plummet in value. It's still holding quite a bit of value, and it's because this one is hooded. It's a little bit of a different pose. It's an updated look with Funko's figures. It's not the standard, just, you know, classic figure where he's standing there. You know, this one looks really good, and I love the way they did it, and I'm actually giving Funko a lot of praise. I just would have loved to see this been a San Diego Comic-Con, or maybe even like a 2,500 limited piece. That would have been really exciting for the Funko community, or heck, even have made it a 10,000 piece for New York Comic Con, or a limited piece for the Funko shop. Like, I think that would have made this one just really, really exciting. It's still exciting, but I don't think it's as exciting just because they're just going to keep making hundreds of thousands of copies of this for the next several years to come, because they know a lot of collectors will pick this up. Now coming in at my number 1 spot, and once again, I know this is going to be a little bit controversial, and not all of you guys are going to agree, but I really sat down and I thought to myself, what is a character that is somebody that a lot of people know, where Funko made a figure of him or her that stands out amongst all the other pops that were released this year? And when I really thought to myself, what fits that description, the one that screams out to me is the Season 3 Mandalorian Moff Gideon with armor. This pop is just so cool in my opinion, and I think that they nailed the look of Moff Gideon from The Mandalorian Season 3, and this is only a common pop. I mean, you could literally pick this up for $12 to $15. It's not going to run you that much, but I just think the way they did it with the black and red, the horns on his helmet, you know, the electrical staff that he's got, it just, overall, this pop looks so good, and it is coming from a rather disappointing season of The Mandalorian, and we don't know where they're going to go. We don't know what is going to end up happening to Moff Gideon. He was presumed dead in that explosion blast at the end, but knowing Disney and Star Wars, he's a character that's just kind of come back again and again and again, so I wouldn't be surprised if Giancarlo Esposito shows up in the Mandalorian Grogu movie that we're supposed to be getting in 2026, but overall, in terms of which Funko Pop figure stood out amongst the rest for just having a little bit more creativity and original design, but yet still capturing a character that we saw, you know, on the small screen in live action form, this Moff Gideon pop for me stole the show, and that's why it's coming in at my number 1 Star Wars pop of the year. And I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me with that, because it's not a con exclusive, it's not an NFT, it's not a release that, you know, got people super amped up and very excited to get, and I completely understand that, and that's why this is my list, and I am just going as objectively speaking as possible, but at the same time, I also order these in the way that I get excited for Star Wars pops. So that is my top 10 And I have a couple quick closing thoughts here on Star Wars and how Funko can improve moving into 2024. Clearly, there is a lot of demand for troopers, and there are so many different troopers in the Mando universe, the New Republic universe, the prequel universe that Funko could make where I feel like they're really missing out on money. For instance, the Mandalorian mystery minis that they released for Season 3 had a Beskar armor trooper, the Imperial Commando. However, we have yet to see an actual pop of that. So it just kind of raises another question. Why is Funko releasing something as a mini, but not releasing something as a mainstream pop? There are also so many other characters that they could make from the Rebels line. If they want to go back to the Rebels show, which clearly they've done a few times here with just the Ezras that we've talked about, and they also made a Sabine recently, go back and give us Hera and the Ghost. I mean, give us Clone Commander Wolf. I would love to see an old man Captain Rex and an ATTE like we saw from the show, a blind Kanan. Like, if you want to steer into the Rebels line, go all out and give us some characters that we have yet to see in Funko Pop form. Give us some cool rides. I mean, there's so many things that they could do. They could give us Gregor from that show as well. I mean, there's just so many opportunities there. So it makes me really scratch my head when, for New York Comic Con time, they release something like a kind of boring Kylo Ren that we've seen multiple iterations of. So I'm really hoping that 2025 is a better year for Funko Star Wars overall. I'm going to give Funko Star Wars this past year a 5.5 out of 10. I just think that there was a lot of missed opportunities. Bad Batch being one of them. I mean, there were so many characters alone from the Bad Batch Season 2 and Season 3 that for whatever reason, Funko just decided not to make. Now, it gives me hope when I see characters like from the Old Republic that have never been made before coming out in Funko Pop form. So if you can do it over here, why can't you do it for mainstream media? Like, it would have been so cool to see some characters drop from the Bad Batch Season 3, even a few months after it had finished up on Disney Plus. So overall, I really hope to see a much better year, and I also would love to see another Freddy, Franny, or Proto character, as a Star Wars character in 2025 as well. I think bringing in more limited pieces. I mean, for the most part, the only limited piece we got was the Diamond Thrawn, and that one to me is just a really bad iteration all around. Like, that just is everything wrong with Funko Star Wars in my opinion. So I might be a little harsh. I'm a diehard Star Wars fan at heart, and I just want to see Funko come out with the best figures possible. So let me know your opinions down in the comment section below. Like I said, I fully expect some people to disagree with me, but since today is Monday, it is time for our weekly Monday Motivation segment. Every single week here on the channel, I like to bring you guys a small piece of Monday Motivation to help kickstart your week and get you through the toughest day of the week, which is typically Monday. And this week is crazy. We've got Christmas coming up in a few short days here, and that's why for today's Monday Motivation, I would encourage all of you guys to take a few minutes out of your schedules, out of your lives this week, and please extend a thank you, a tip, a coffee, whatever you can manage to offer up to your mail carriers. We are collectors. We often order a lot of things off the internet in addition to all of the normal things that we need for our lives from Amazon and, things you buy from other websites. They're all getting delivered by your mail carriers, whether it's through the Postal Service, UPS, DHL, FedEx, Amazon, what have you. Those people have to work in some pretty extreme conditions. I know here in Pennsylvania we have about a foot of snow on the ground right now, and our mail carriers have to trek all the way up to our driveway and drop off our boxes. So if you can, I know a lot of people don't have extra cash in their budget, but give your mail carrier a $10 gift card to Dunkin' or something, or give them a coffee, or just simply wait for them to come up to your door with whatever mail they have for you that day, and let them know how much you appreciate them, because we would not be able to get the things that we get when we order them online or from whatever website or app or whatever you like to shop on without our mail carriers. And I think they often go underlooked and overlooked and undernoticed, especially this time of the year. So that is my Monday Motivation. I am very grateful for all the mail carriers that we've interacted with, especially this year in Massachusetts, New Jersey, and now in Pennsylvania, they have all helped us out a ton with our business and, you know, delivering our normal mail for our collection and our everyday needs. So I am very grateful for the Postal Service in particular, but also Amazon and UPS have also made significant impacts in our lives. So make sure to thank your mail carriers in whatever capacity you can offer up. But that's going to do it for today's video, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. I'm hopefully looking forward to a much better year for Funko Star Wars in 2025. We have some more exciting shows and movies on the horizon coming up in the next few years, so plenty of opportunity for Funko to give us some amazing figures. With that being said, don't stop shooting until you score, and Merry Christmas.